I only have 20 minutes to film this, but I think it's so important for me to film this right now. I'm just moving things. I'm so sorry if it's loud and it's hurting y'all's ears. I apologize. I just finished journaling. I think it's such an important thing that we can put into our daily lives, and this really isn't what the video is gonna be about, but I just want to let everybody know, if you're struggling with mental health, there is help. One of the things is that sometimes it is really hard to get help, and if you can't, just go and write. One of the things that I had a really hard time struggling with is I love to type. My mind is like running 800 miles per hour, and sometimes I can't even just write it down. But sometimes it's because our attention span is so low that we're not allowed to fully put our focus into something. So journal, read, do things that take more time, that take more dedication. And it's going to be so completely boring for the first 15 minutes, but you'll get into it. So today I wanted to talk about, on a happier note, today I wanted to talk about all the book recommendations that I've had and how much I'm just so excited to be back and doing this with y'all guys, because I have so many book recommendations that I felt like I've talked about before, but I've reread books. I have found different books that I think are just so amazing. So, first book series that I want to get off started is the Boys of Tallman series. I am obsessed. I am so obsessed with this book. It is ingrained in every single part of my mind. I swear, if you are looking for, first of all, a found family trope, it's there. It is there. When we go into these different types of books, we have to look at all these characters. So this surrounds Shannon and the Lynch family. The way that these books go is that it starts off with Shannon being bullied, and so it's more goes into life in general, high school, and I would say into the future as well, because not all the characters are in the same place. So it starts off with Shannon transferring to a different school and her kind of just finding her place and falling in love with the best norm, if I couldn't explain to you, Johnny Kavanaugh. Johnny Kavanaugh is that man. He is that man. He is ingrained in every single part of my mind. It's so crazy how I have so many book boyfriends and he tops it. I think his character is so multi-dimensional that it's very exciting to just see his growth and his change. And I've heard a lot of issues with this book that a lot of people have had, or not issues, but a lot of disagreements, because they do not like how much Shannon Lynch talks about how small and tiny she is. And I get a lot of the times that a lot of people will consider that pick me, but I can't. Shannon is literally my baby. I love her to death. I think a lot of people just don't understand the context of what this has to do on how much trauma that this girl withstood. And I don't even think that's right. But when you're looking at it and in the context of how much she went through and how much everything just fully happened to her, we need to start looking at, first of all, the physical aspect, this physical aspect of her trauma, and then the internal trauma of her physically vomiting at school because of how anxious she was. So I think personally you're gonna see yourself in a lot of these characters. I especially see myself in Joey Lynch and Shannon, and so much as well, kind of these characters reading you to filth. It's really hard not to relate to these characters and understand them, and I think that's why the book to me is so greatly engraved in my body, my soul. There will be times that I'll be listening to a song and I'm like, and it almost like, for me, everyone has enjoyed the Harry Potter series or the Harry Potter books, and for me, that's what these books were to me. I felt like I wanted to be their friends, to understand. And I think that's such a beautiful thing about books, is that it ingrains our lives into them. It allows us to experience a whole nother version of people's lives that we don't really tend to get to see, because I feel like a lot of a huge day in society in general is not understanding people's full perspective. And that's a huge thing with a lot of people sometimes being the villain in somebody else's story, because there's so many perspectives to one story. When the first perspective of this story goes from Shannon's perspective of her going to school. The second book is also her healing from that. But then my favorite thing about this is when we get thrown into Joey Lynch's book, because sometimes when we are in our own trauma, we are so focused on just our lives, and we can see other things happening to other people, but sometimes when our trauma is so greatly bound to us, sometimes we can experience an outside perspective. So when we're going into Joey Lynch's book, I think it gives it gives huge perspectives on things that are kind of not necessarily clear. It gives, how do I say this? It fills in the gaps that we didn't necessarily get from Shannon's story, but so much of Joey's. And I think when you tend to be the caretaker in a family, your perspective is mainly the full experience of it. But I think we also get to see that sometimes, I think Joey, and a lot of people have said this as well, is that sometimes undermines Shannon's value to what she maintained the family. But I think that's a huge perspective of whose perspective you're looking at. Are we looking at Joey's? Are we looking at Shannon? And I think their relationship is just so beautiful, and to such a big extent, it's heartbreaking, because you're getting to understand and to love these characters, to get in their minds, to understand their likes, to understand moments where they're experiencing this, and you're having to say, well, I like this about this person, and I like this. And I want to speak on this focal point because I think a lot of people are going to dislike this character, and it's understandable. It is, I would say, in all honesty, correct to dislike this character. But I think one thing that they tend to miss on the story is when we look at Gypsy and Claire, when we go into Taming Seven, because we get Shannon and Johnny. Johnny is this perfect boy, you know what I mean? But he struggles with a lot that we tend to not see because of his perfect personality. Then we're going into Joey Lynch, and we already know, based off his character, he is not, I'm not going to say not sane, but he is going through worse than the average teen. Extremely worse than the average teen. You know what I mean? Maintaining a family, struggling with drug addiction. On top of that, having to deal with your mother very much disliking you. It takes a real big toll. But then when we look, my favorite thing about Gypsy's book is that we look into a character who's so, I would say, out of all the characters in this book, he is the most multi-dimensional character. Because when we look at Gypsy, we see through these books where he's always putting himself into situations. We're not seeing the full story. We're always seeing himself put himself into situations. And he's tend to be looked at as this, I'm even getting emotional right now because even reading his story it fully broke my heart. We're seeing him put himself into situations and where they're like, kind of almost making fun of Gypsy, and not fun of him, but he's just the clown friend. He is very much, he's there for pure enjoyment, and then fully seeing his backstory and how you deal with that perspective. And I think that's so interesting because I see a lot of people hate on Lizzie Young. And one of the things I like to say about this book is that people heal differently, people understand things differently, and a lot of people tend to forget that these characters are all different versions of what happens to you when trauma happens to you. And I think that's why I love this book so much, and it would be my 100% recommendation. Even if you're not in high school, it really shows you character development, multi-dimensional characters, how different people experience trauma. And I have heard that Chloe Walsh is a controversial author, and I have to say I haven't done much research into it, but I surely will. But based on just her writing, I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think sometimes we need to separate the art from the artist, and I think the way that she just wrote it, it was beautiful. I have no words to say that other than that this book is a 10 out of 10, 5 stars. It has everything. It really does. I have to say that I just love it so much. I'm so sorry because this book is just like, I love it. My recommendation playlist for this is listening to She Will Be Loved. You will hear it. Iris. Ooh, what's another one? I'm trying to remember the song that happened in Joey's book, and they're in Aoife's car. I always say Aoife, and I don't know where I got that translation from, but I always say Aoife because that's the way I don't know. But her name's Aoife because it's just Ava, but like with the F. And they're in Aoife's car, and they're listening to something, and I don't remember what it is. I have to look. I'll literally insert a thing of me when I say it. Okay. Second book recommendation that I can't recommend enough. And it's kind of in the same world, but it's different. I think this one's very an interesting hot take on what boys in power do. The Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas has been one of my all-time favorite books. And I see a lot of people hate this book because of the things that happen in this book. Trigger warning, this does have to do with SA and as well as other things in this book. I think in general, the book, I really didn't read it for Damon Torrance. I didn't read it for Will Grayson. I didn't read it for Michael Christ or Kai Mori. Kai Mori is my favorite, just saying. But I think it's really looking at all these book characters and looking at the women. You want to know what? That's why I read this book. The women in this book are elite. These are strong, soft, sensitive women. We have so many multi-dimensional women. We have Erica Fane. You know, she comes from a wealthy family, but then she's also not always like, she's happy, she's kind. And then we shift to a different narrative where we see Nakova Banks, and oh my god, Nakova, my baby, I love her. And we see her in this extent of, okay, like, I don't come from that. I have been through the things that not a lot of people would experience, especially the way that she grew up in, how she kind of just developed into this strong, beautiful woman we see. And I think one of my favorite things is seeing the first of where they came from and seeing how much they grow throughout the book. I would say that you need to read the whole series to fully get the point of view. Winter Ashby, that's my queen right there. She clocks it. Clocks it in. There's this one scene where she's all like, a lot of people think that you're my sister. And she's like, are you hot? Like, oh my god, I know. Yeah, I think she says that. I'm not 100% sure, but it was something like that. And she was just a beautiful character. I think there's so much that I could say about these characters. And last but not least, Emery Scott. She's the embodiment of sometimes things don't end the way that you would expect. And when you're going through a lot of trauma, you're not the person who you like. You don't like who you are. You really don't know even who you are. And I think seeing Emery grow into a normal adult and then her getting back thrown into this life and her growing, you know? And I think that's what's so interesting about these characters is because I think a lot of the point we tend to see the glamorous or the kind of reckless, risky side of the Four Horsemen. But I think we really need to be looking at the Four Horsemen women. Like, they are insanely multi-dimensional characters. I'm gonna keep saying this because I love multi-dimensional characters and I love books, and I think so. I'm gonna recommend a standalone after this that I think is just so beautiful. I'm only gonna do 2 more recommendations before I have to end the video because I have to go soon. I'm gonna actually do another series, the King of Sins series. So great. It's a little bit interesting. I really loved King of Greed, personally. I've read all of them. I really just love that series in general. I would say that I'm not 100% sure that what happens in these books because they're all so calculated and in their own sense. I think Anna Huang, as a author in general, she is an outstandingly beautiful author. The way she writes into detail of these characters, for me personally, I think all the books were good, but for me personally, I think the book that stuck to my heart the most was King of Greed, because we go and we see Alexandra and Dominic Davenport's story. And I think one of the reasons I'm gonna recommend this book is if people who struggle with feeling like you're second. And this is the point in the story where you decide to choose yourself. And one of the things that I see with her is her deciding to go back, is to know your worth and to know that you can still love somebody and still choose yourself. And my last recommendation for today is Archer's Voice. I need everybody on this shit now, ASAP. ASAP, I need you to book that book. So Archer's Voice goes off with, he's blind. I know he's not, I was gonna say he was mute. I'm so sorry. No, he's blind and he's kind of been isolated to this whole point. And then we have my girl, I'm totally forgetting her name. I'm so sorry. But this book, I don't remember it, but I knew that it left a... Oh, no. He's not blind. He's mute. The hell? Where the hell was I getting that he was blind from? No, he's just mute. He just can't talk. Shit, my bad. I'm so sorry. I need to go do a little reread but I'm telling you, the book right now, 10 out of 10. That's how, I don't remember it that well, but it was good. It was good. Just let me tell you that. This is the end of my recommendations video. I hope y'all liked it and y'all enjoyed it. I will be seeing y'all soon. Once I edit these will get posted soon, either today or tomorrow. But yeah, I hope y'all like my recommendations and I hope to see y'all soon.